What is going on, everyone? Welcome on in to Sports Talk with Bro. It's exciting victory at the Wells Fargo Center. The Dallas Mavericks are a good basketball team, and the Sixers did a fantastic job at shutting down Luka Doncic. They threw in the zone. Okay, their players made some shots in that second half, which obviously pushed the 76ers in a fantastic spot. James Harden, your savvy veteran point guard, took control and was super aggressive and scored in so many different ways. We saw the step back three, the classic dribble, step back, beautiful. We saw a drive and a nice lob to DeAndre Jordan. We saw him take control and say, this is ours, let's rock. And it was just awesome to see. And do not downplay who the Dallas Mavericks are, because over the last few games, let's be realistic. A lot of this fan base was nervous. The excitement that we had early on between James Harden and Joel Embiid, it died out. There was so much fear of the bench. And this is a perfect example of a game where at times we can try and dissect, okay, what can Doc Rivers do differently? And how could he attack the bench rotations with a different mindset? And what can he do here? And what can he do there to change things differently? And I go, make your shots. Execute. You're an NBA basketball player. Make your shots. And you saw the difference because James Harden in the beginning, when he saw his field goals, nothing was going in. You saw George Niang wide open looks. So damn wide open. Clank, clank, all iron. Miss. Now you fast forward to the second half. It's raining threes in the third quarter. James Harden scoring. He's dribble penetrating. He's taking control. And if there's mismatches, he's going to exploit that. All they did differently was actually make their shots. And that's how the Sixers were able to push through and win the basketball game. And I just like the fact that you see an opponent that is very skilled and you see a superstar on the other team that struggles. And it's because you made sure it was living hell whenever the basketball was in his hands. Now, that's also an example of great players have off nights. So when you see James Harden shoot the ball poorly and you want to freak out and scream, I'm sure we all love Luka Doncic. And we should love Luka Doncic because he's a stud. He went 5 of 20 when facing an opponent that made him play on his heels and had to overthink. And it seemed like there was never a feeling of comfortable when Luka Doncic had the ball in his hands. But even the best to do it, even the most exciting players will go through a stretch and have an off night and play poorly on the road. Keep that in mind whenever that happens to one of our fellas. But we know that wasn't the case tonight. Joel Embiid in the first half, if I'm just going to rattle off all the things I loved from James Harden, it's just like that, but this time Joel Embiid. Pick and roll. The pick and roll is sensational, and that opens up a pass to Tobias in the dunker spot. Or how about when he saved the ball from going out of bounds? It stays in play. The ball's moving, good passing, and Tobias Harris is wide open for three. Or they'll pick and roll, and there's a wide open C that just opens up, and he takes it to the rack, and it's a major jam. I think that pick and roll is deadly and something that I almost want to see too much. I want them to overuse that. I want them to abuse it. Now, obviously, they have other ways to kill you, and their versatility is why we're in awe whenever they touch the floor. So, let's make sure we find a reasonable level to do it. But you get my point. I feel that there's more. There's way more to that play. The pick and roll. Everyone utilizes the pick and roll. You obviously work in the pick and pop. But I love this roll. Embiid moving that quickly downhill. What are you going to do? And whatever your decision is, Embiid will most likely find the alternative to what you're throwing his way. Whatever the defensive look is, here, have at it. And speaking of defensive looks, I did find it rather fascinating that Denver played James Harden the way that they did. James has not been his smoothest self, and I would almost dare him to beat you just by himself before you kind of throw certain looks in his direction. But I don't care because this team got rolling and they look like the team that we saw when Harden first got here and they were winning basketball games. I just think what happened over the last few nights was just working together and figuring out details and trying to emphasize some different looks and working together to get cohesive because it doesn't happen overnight. Just remember, as soon as the trade went down, we all had open dialogue, whether it was on the Anytime Hotline, whether it was on Twitter, whether it's live in the chat as we do these shows live on YouTube. There's going to be a gelling moment. There's going to be a stretch of games where sloppiness occurs. Some bad sets are ran. It looks hideous. So when we see that, we should all just breathe and realize that we were aware. We even spoke about it. We had plenty of conversations throughout so many social media platforms that it was inevitable. So when it happens, let's just breathe a little bit and give them their time to work out the kinks. And honestly, while I didn't like how the offense was stagnant in previous games, and I think as Doc Rivers alluded to recently, the defense and the way that you're playing defense and the fact that they were getting shelled and annihilated, 42 points in the first quarter, high 30s in the first quarter, the other opponent is punching you in the jaw, it just loses that vibe, that killer attitude that you need because the other team's getting in a groove and they're scoring buckets and they're easily running what they want to where they're getting constant looks. It's deflating. It's demoralizing. And the fact that Embiid played the way that he did, it was a little slow early, don't get me wrong. 7-0 run by Jalen Brunson. Doc Rivers has to call a timeout within minutes of the action. But how ironic, when the Sixers went to the zone in the second half, you saw the Sixers, Joel Embiid hits a big shot. He hit the step back three at the end of the first half too, which is just hilarious to me considering he got the ball, two defenders were on him. He runs towards the three-point line, so his back is literally facing the basket. He turns around, dribbles 3 times, and does a sidestep, step-back three right in the eye of a defender. What type of 7-foot human being can do that as awesome as Joel Embiid? I'll give you the answer for you. Nobody on planet Earth. The Dallas Mavericks, though, had to call timeout as soon as that second half got going. That was almost a realization. We have them exactly where we need them, fellas. And then from there, when Matisse Thybulle's drilling threes, you know it's your night. You know the ball is in your hands and the basketball gods is supporting your squad. But over the last few games, yeah, there's been some issues with stagnant play, and there's been some issues with transition defense, but I think they're doing a better job putting the emphasis on that transition defense. There's a cap. There's only so far that they could go based off of their personnel, but it has been so ugly and so miserable that there's no way that it's going to be that poor forever. There's better transition D that you have on your team than what we saw against Denver and what we saw at times against some other opponents. It's just finding ways to make sure that you get out there and make it better than it was. They were better than what they put on display. And you're seeing it. You're seeing what they're capable of doing, which is scoring a lot of points. Pick your poison. Your stars were on it. Embiid with 32. James Harden was on it. And honestly, it's almost giddy the way that I felt watching James Harden in that fourth quarter. It was so cool to see the presence. He just calmed everything down. He got the ball at the top of the perimeter, and he ran the plays that he felt was worthy in those times. He sees the defense, sees what they're doing. His patience is now waiting, and now he's seeing exactly what's breaking down. Okay, I got exactly what I want to do. I'll find DeAndre Jordan, or I'll take this one-on-one matchup with the step-back three, or I'll drive and I'll take it to the rack and get fouled. He just took over like superstars do, and there's still a feeling right now that he's trying to get a full grasp on when to be aggressive and when to get his teammates going. That's still something that he's working on, and only time will get him through the way that he needs to. Sometimes there's way too much of, I need Shake Milton shots, I need Tobias shots. Dude, you have a mismatch. You have a chance. James, let's go. There's a reason why you've put up 30-plus in a season before consistently. You're a dog. I want to see that dog. I don't care about Shake Milton's extra shot in a quarter. So he's still working on it. But tonight is that example of when it's flip the switch mode. That's why I need him to have more of that selfishness, because I thought that perfect mix was absolutely there in the second half. Not that I want to live and die with Matisse Thybulle threes, but I'm also not mad that Matisse Thybulle's taking them when wide open. I don't feel he's going to get much better at it, to be fair, but I still find the value in Matisse at least recognizing that these are the shots that my teammates are drilling in my head that I have to take. And that's why I love Niang too. Niang, and this was referenced on the postgame show, this man could miss a lot of threes in a row, and he's ready to shoot the next one. As he should be. That's what he's there to do. And I keep going back to when James Harden put on a 76ers uniform and was talking to Niang. Actually, this might have been a game where he rang the bell and he wasn't even participating. He might have not even been playing that game. But I remember him speaking to some of his teammates. Niang dribbled the ball out of bounds, and he looked a little bit all over the place. And he goes, dude, you're not here to put the ball on the floor. You're here to shoot the rock. And you see what this team could do with the lead, and they can push it, and they explode a bit. They gather separation when he's hot. And then in the first half, it's closer because him and James Harden weren't making shots. I don't want to make it that simple because obviously there is more involved in an NBA basketball game, and there's way more angles to discuss why we saw what we did. But there are levels to this where you can get the same looks in the same situations and miss them on a different night. And then you could get the same looks like you did tonight in that third quarter, in that fourth frame, and it's going in, and it's great, and it's amazing. Sometimes that's what it is. And I feel this is an example of when we discussed that game against Denver and you had this, superstars did their thing. James Harden did just fine. Joel Embiid did just fine. But every bench person blew and they got rocked badly in that department. On a different night, those shots go in. Just wasn't meant to be then. And tonight it was meant to be. This team has a lot of talent. This team has superstar talent. They have their flaws. Their bench is thin. You can't rely on DeAndre Jordan to be this. This was the best DeAndre Jordan we saw since the whole pickup occurred. But I don't know if I can believe in it. No. I'm very concerned for that area. But when they click, they click. And that does still happen. Don't just remember the times that make you upset and don't remember the good victories. It's a good victory. It's a very strong win for sure. I'm going to open up the phone lines at 610-6. I did the Fanatic number again. It's like drilled into my head. 856-442-9805. 856-442-9805. That's the phone number to hop into the conversation. Me and you, we could speak about what we just witnessed. I love the fact that Tobias had an efficient night, 6 of 9, hit a couple threes, 14 points. The only problem I'm starting to have with him now that I'm getting irritated about is those personal fouls. It seems like we saw him at the end of last game get an and one situation play out, which can happen. And it's a late foul that's disturbing. You got to know the game better. You got to know time and situation. And you're hurting your team there, Tobias. So these personal fouls are getting a little bit iffy for me. But if you're telling me he shoots 6 of 10, or excuse me, he shot 6 of 9 tonight. But if he's giving you 7 of 10 and he's giving you a handful of threes, I like that attitude, Toby. I think this team tonight, when you look at their defense, Danny Green played a nice role with the way Doc played his card with defenders and James Harden. And I really like the buttons that were pushed from there. And Joel Embiid, 5 steals. Here he is, 5 steals, a couple blocks. Matisse Thybulle gets that incredible steal in the first quarter. He's running towards the three-point line to cut off a pass. He keeps it inbound. Here goes Tyrese Maxey, full throttle, full speed, kisses it off the glass in transition. He also had that very confident pull-up 3 in transition. I love that now out of Tyrese Maxey. When this kid gets the ball, not that he had the best shooting night by any means, because he definitely struggled, but now when Tyrese has that time and he's dribbling up the floor and the pace is being pushed and the fact that he can fly the way that he does, when you stop on a dime to set your feet and let it rock, and the Wells Fargo Center erupted there because the Sixers did take the lead. That's one one of my favorite out of Maxey. It's just night and day based off of what we've seen in other seasons with his ability to knock down shots. There was one more Joel Embiid play I wanted to reference. It was a fast break. It seemed like James Harden was a step or two in front of him in an awkward position where maybe they would almost run into each other, but I thought Joel would bounce past it to James and let him take it for a nice easy two and an easy slam. But Embiid kept it all the way, and he's falling underneath the basket while finding a way to spin it. It hits glass, rattles around the rim, and then he might have finished that off with the classic Joel Embiid hump. How does he do it? I have no idea. You go from that to the side step three. Excuse me? How does this work? It's absolutely insane. All right, we'll go to the phones and bring in our first caller of the night. Good evening. You're on Broads Media.
Hey, Broads. This is a great win tonight from the 76ers. And I just want to talk about how much better George Niang is than Mike Scott. I mean, they just don't even compare. And I was a little bit concerned there in the first quarter when Jalen Brunson was going off in front of his family and friends out there. But it also helped the 76ers tonight that Luka Doncic was not having a very good night. And that always helps when he doesn't score what he has been scoring these last couple of games. And another point I just wanted to make was that Joel Embiid, when he doesn't even look at the rim and he just kind of tosses it up and gets that and one, was just unbelievable. My jaw was on the floor.
I love it, man. Thanks so much. I feel the same way. I'm in awe. I mean, when you think about Joel Embiid and what he's capable of doing, and at times it seems so nonchalant, and it is because he's such a force, but it's not because anyone with that body frame would be able to do it. He's so damn smart, and he knows when he gets players in positions where he's going to be okay. He laughs. He establishes himself in the low post presence. He's waving the basketball, and before he's even waving for it, he already knows I have them exactly where I want them. And if help comes and there's a defender coming baseline to maybe try and throw him into a loop mentally, he finds an open teammate and the ball moves around. But there's a reason why Luka struggled. There's a reason why Jalen Brunson calmed down. Now, he wasn't going to never miss a shot because he started 6 of 6 from the field and he scored the first 7 points. And it was Jalen Brunson 7 to the Sixers basically having nothing. But credit the Sixers because it did seem like they committed to that side of the floor, and that is a problem. So here is your positive, and it's not a problem that they committed to the defensive side of the floor. Their defense stinks, and we know that, specifically transition D, but there does seem to be a buy-in to, we know that this is a part of our squad that suffers, and we have to commit to changing that. So I'm looking at those details over the last couple of games, that transition D, nowhere even close to as vomit-worthy. So as someone watching them progress as a unit, as a team, as a squad, the last few games, I can give them their golf claps for really studying that side of what needs to get better, and that played a role. But the Sixers making them feel the way that they did and putting pressure, applying some tough defense on them is why Luka wasn't able to score the way that we see. And why Jalen Brunson didn't keep that pace up. Sixers went zone. Sixers got them maybe taking shots that they didn't anticipate at that time of the game. Hold on a second. You're telling me sometimes other teams get caught looking at a zone? Spencer Dinwiddie. For some reason, I don't know why, there really is no emotional tie to this person, but I do have to admit that whenever I see Powell's face just bothers me. And it's one of those people where, for what? In what world? What has he ever done that I feel he's in the hate the face category? I think of Ben Simmons, I think of Powell, and I want to punch both of them in the face. Why him? He's done nothing to me. Now, speaking of Ben Simmons, now the Nets don't know if he's ever going to play again. This season. Let's clarify here. This season. A few days ago, I saw a report that stated that a couple games maybe. Well, if that's the case, you might as well not play Ben Simmons at all. That's silly and that's goofy. And you're basically putting him in a position to fail, which is disastrous. Why? Why even play around with that if that's the case? But now you're seeing something with the back. But Do I really believe all of that? I don't know. I have no idea where that goes, but that really isn't any of our business at this point. But at the same time, when there is Ben Simmons news, I'm not going to shy away from Ben Simmons news just because there are some out there in this fan base that cares, that doesn't care anymore. Now that he's gone, he's out of sight, out of mind. Yes, I get that. I'm also keeping up with everything Ben Simmons related because he lied about mental health and he tried to hold you hostage. And I'm on a revenge tour from that. So I'm keeping the pulse and the radar of Ben Simmons stories right on the edge of my fingertips, whether you like it or not. Back to the phones we go. Good evening. You are on the air.
Bro, how's it going?
It's going good, man. How's it going for you?
It's going really well. I want to take a different approach of why I love this game so much.
Okay.
What I loved about this game so much was the response and the adjustments they made from when we played the Nets. We got our teeth knocked in, the sky was falling, and we, gave some time, made some adjustments, get some more, time together. And Mavericks came in and we just took them to town. It was just so much fun to watch. And, we gave some of our players some more confidence. We're going to go on the road and let's see what happens. But I think this is really going to help us down the road.
Absolutely. I see it the same exact way, where you see a team get beat down heavily against the Nets. You would expect them to blow the roof off against the Orlando Magic, and there wouldn't even be a fight involved. That game ended up going to overtime. So there was some murky basketball play, and you thought that they'd be so bothered and so upset that there would just be fumes rolling through their body, but they continued to start out flat. And even in this game, to a degree, they started out flat. And just like their transition D being ugly, is there something to be said about slow starts being part of their identity? Is there enough basketball games for us to already recognize that where, I don't know if that's going to change. That seems to be part of who they are this season. Before James Harden, after James Harden, that they're just not ready right from the jump. And maybe just like we're witnessing with their focus level on transition D, is it possible that they tweak some things? I mean, there was a game. What was their most recent one where they did start out super hot? I mean, way too intensely. Was it the Cleveland game? I don't think it was Cleveland. Was it the Nuggets game? Maybe it was the Nuggets game. Because I didn't even think the Nuggets game was that bad. They made mistakes in the game that we criticized, but overall, I didn't think they played as flat as we witnessed in some of those other matchups. I forget which game it was, but they came out fine. I don't know, just something to keep studying, but I know that it's happened so much for me to think they're going to snap their fingers and all of a sudden they're a team that is on 10 runs every single time the ball is tipped. It's hard for me to just automatically assume that that's going to happen just out of blind faith. James Harden played 42 minutes tonight. 42. You're desperate in that area. And watching James Harden play that much, hamstring injury, age, you want to keep playing and you want this team to be running up and down the floor together because that's when they're going to grab as much real time as they can to continue this cohesiveness, to continue this style where they're working with one another and seeing where they like to operate on the floor. And James Harden faking that step back and hitting hitting Joel Embiid for a three, or just knowing when Niang is where he likes to get to and all that circumstances, right? 42 minutes, though, for the rest of the way. There's not too many games left. There's not an obnoxious amount of time left. So maybe that's their thought, but it is a lot. The other starters, nowhere even close to the same. Tobias Harris, I talked about the field goals and how efficient it was. He only played about mid-20 minutes per game tonight, or not per game. That makes no sense, but played about mid-20s in this effort tonight, and it was distributed a bit differently. We know Embiid tapped out of a game at one point because he was a little bit fatigued. But it doesn't seem when you watch him play that there's a carryover effect because he's just monstrous and battles right through it. Remember where we once were with him in the conditioning after every free throw? He's huffing and puffing with his hands on his knees after every stoppage, after every timeout. He's hanging out over by the sidelines and he's with the head coach, Brett Brown, at the time. And he's just, now it's a totally different beast. have you really even seen him other than maybe one time out of whack with his conditioning? Maybe two all year long? It just really describes the dedication to the body, the dedication to the approach, and the buy-in factor to be the best that he can possibly be. The nutrition, just like LeBron spends all this money on his off-season regimen and his workouts and the meal prep and everything involved to get his body in shape so he can drop 50-plus points at age 76, it seems like. Joel Embiid, maybe one, maybe two. I do know one. One, yes. One, definite. Can I think of a second? It doesn't really come to my mind. All right, Nolan is on the phone lines. What's up, Nolan?
What's going on, bro? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm really hyped up with this Sixers win tonight. Great win for this team. Obviously coming off of a really tough test, on the road against Cleveland. But great to see this team coming out on all cylinders. And give credit to this Dallas Mavericks team. This was not a tough test, just like with Cleveland. This Dallas Mavericks team was not an easy test for the Sixers whatsoever, but they held their ground. They fired on all cylinders, and everybody contributed.
Absolutely. No, and I saw it the same exact way. Good team win. Matisse Thybulle scoring buckets. You saw them cut in early, and that cut's going to make or break Matisse Thybulle. He did what he did shooting the rock, and it seems you might get one now. Maybe you get lucky, you get one. You still flashed a bunch of zero burgers in our face a few weeks ago, but maybe you get one. It's about the kind of how efficient with the passing of James Harden can Thybulle be off the ball when you think of baseline, and maybe you could think of getting him the ball on a lob in a dunker spot scenario. But the difference is you see Thybulle off the floor, what that means for spacing at times. But I digress. Today's not the day to bring that up by any means. I thought this was a very solid team victory. And Nolan just brought up something that fascinates me because he referenced how good the Dallas Mavericks are. And I almost feel after this game, it's so what? It was just Dallas. Now, how come when the Sixers lose or they win in a way that you don't love the style of how it looked, it's automatically so crucial and so harsh, yet it's not getting as much appreciation as it should when they beat a really strong opponent? If this game was back and forth in the fourth quarter and the Sixers executed two late plays, one of them being a drawn-up play by Doc out of a timeout, and they win and like massive emotional victory. Joel Embiid's fist pumping on the floor at center court after he drains a mid-range jumper as the buzzer goes off or something along those lines. Would we feel more connected to it? And will we give it more credit instead of, oh, it was a blowout, so we just expect because we don't really watch Dallas, we just chalk it up to Luka having a tough night and then beating a team nicely. Yet when the Sixers are on the other side, you don't view that poor game that James Harden has the same way you view Luka Doncic's poor game. It all doesn't add up to me. And I guess even though my job is to talk every single game after every single night when they do play, when you get into the game-by-game extreme change of how you feel about the team, that's when it irks me and takes me to the next level. I got a buddy like that where every night, depending on what happens, if they win and they look good, whoo, that two-man game between James Harden and Joel Embiid. But if it's a night that we all cringe and we're covering our eyes and George Niang is taking a three, hitting the side of the backboard and then putting up a two-pointer and missing that, but that's not the case. He shouldn't have never done that to begin with. When you see those type of games and those type of plays being ran at the end of basketball games, you go, holy hell. Oh, wow. That didn't happen, did it? Oh, it did. Oh. But then Niang, he continues the hot stretch of drilling 4 threes. It's crazy what this team is capable of doing when you get that player. I mentioned previously that is there anyone that you can rely on off the bench that can give you 8 points? 8 freaking points. That's what I'm asking for. I can't rely on Danny to do that. I can't rely on Shake Milton to do that. It's definitely not a backup big man to do that. So your only real option is George Niang. And if he can give you 8, there's something to that. Not every game is going to be pretty. We wanted to know, can they win with a thin bench if your starters do their thing? Well, they did beat Cleveland. It might have not have looked the way that you would have wanted it to necessarily, but they won the basketball game. I don't care in a 7-game series if they win by 5 and you hated it. I don't care. I never said that with a thin bench, every win would be beautiful and every win would have you in smiling from ear to ear mode for all 48 minutes and never feeling any sort of disgust, because no, even when they do win, there's going to be plenty of moments because you're playing talented teams and you're playing squads that had good lethal talent on the other side. So it's never just going to be easy. This is the NBA playoffs we were talking about in the hypothetical. So why would it ever be easy? You're playing a Boston Celtics. You're playing a Milwaukee Bucks. You're playing a Toronto Raptors. You're playing the Brooklyn Nets. These teams have scary players that can score at will too. So it's never just going to be this easy cruise where you aren't worried for any seconds at all. Those are just false expectations. Not the Golden State Warriors going 73-9 in a season. And oh, by the way, that wasn't even the season where they won one of their damn trophies. So even if with a thin bench they win, but you're not satisfied with it, I think we got to start recognizing that that's still extremely important right now, because as currently constructed, that's what it's going to take. Gritty, tough, bad possessions matched by good possessions, then maybe some bad possessions because you're stuck with some guys and your rotation is limited and Doc Rivers doesn't have too many options to go to at certain points. So I'm just going to kind of change the whole thought on it from that angle, because this is a new philosophy for me. Okay, the bench stinks. We see it's clear now. Enough of a sample size, though. It's bad. So knowing that it's bad, when they do win and your bench is minus 27, your bench is minus 28, not satisfying, but a good opponent on the road. You handle adversity, you battle, and you leave with a W in the column. I think it's time to change your mind on it based off of this team, the way that it is. All right, back to the phones we go. Hello, how are you?
Yo, what's up, man? It's Addison from Coatesville.
What's up, Addison?
Nothing much, man. Do you think Tobias and Danny Green are starting to pick up, or what, man? I think it's finally clicking for them.
I definitely think Tobias is finding himself a little bit more, and Maxey kind of understood what to do once James Harden got here. Play off ball and utilize your speed and maximize your skill set there and keep taking threes too. But just because he did it so nicely, it doesn't mean every player is going to grab onto that as quickly. And Tobias, we've seen him when he got traded here with Jimmy Butler, and there was a time where they had to work on that too. So my point is with Toby, he seems to need a bit more time, but it doesn't mean he's not capable.
Does, but he's alert. Yeah, he learns the game, and I think he's adjusting good. He looked really like he flowed well, and it's the first time I was like, wow, Maxey is the fourth option. And
well, it's a combination of both, to be fair. And I appreciate you calling. It's a combination of both. Some nights it'll be Maxey. Some nights it'll be Tobias. Maxey gives you 28. Tobias Harris gives you 14, or he gives you 18, or he gives you 22, or it's a combination of both of them. It really isn't one or the other. Each night it will be different. Maybe each set of 3 games will be different. And one part of Tobias's game that I definitely want to point out, and I do agree that the flow of Toby within the offense definitely smells more structured, and it's less choppy. When he gets it, it's less dribble. It's less back to the basket and look around. It's more, I have it, I know what I'm doing. It's catch and shoot. It's, I'm targeting this mismatch. It's less overthinking and more, I'm going with my instincts. More instinctual basketball out of Toby, and I think that's awesome. But it comes down to 2, the willingness to defend. I think the willingness right now for Tobias to defend, it seems Doc Rivers' message recently was about the slow starts defensively has impacted this team in general. Well, I'm starting to sense the buy-in factor on that end has risen. Just a tad. Maybe a little bit more than a tad. Maybe a tad isn't giving it enough justice. But a respectful amount in my eyes. And I think that that's really changing how they're kind of getting going at the same time with confidence on the other end of the floor as well. Before we continue with tonight's show, I do need to let you know about WinView. So WinView is the nation's leading sports predictor, allowing you to compete in pregame or live contests against other people, not the house. You answer questions before each game begins or play in quarter-long contests while you're watching games to take your viewing experience to the next level. Winview.tv/Broads. The link is down below in the description. I'll make up a hypothetical. Let's say the Sixers are playing the Boston Celtics. The way this works is it's 1 versus 1. So it would be me versus you. We put money in the pot. Whoever answers more questions correctly with that game will take home the pot. There's free versions to play as well if you want to get your feet wet in the game before you put down cash. But the way it works would be, will Joel Embiid outscore Jason Tatum? Will Matisse Thybulle have the most steals as a player in the game? Will the Sixers out-rebound the Boston Celtics? Will the Sixers bench score more than the Celtics bench? These are the questions that are asked. And like I said, if you answer more correctly, you win the pot. It's super fun. One of you is going to win. It's fantastic. Winview.tv/Broads. They're doubling deposit bonuses right now, so take advantage of that. It is sensational, and it's so lethal that I'm addicted to it, and I can't stop playing, but I'm also making my wallet a little bit fatter to go buy some Jordan 1s, some Jordan 3s, getting some more tattoos, buying more headbands, some shirts. You know, it's nonstop shopping for me, and WinView is giving me the opportunity to do so, and that is definitely something that I love in my life. That is for damn sure. I love the fact that when that timeout was called by Dallas at the start of the second half, I knew. I'm like, they're done. They're screwed. They don't have anything. They won't do this. Sixers are about to go on a search. And I don't know if anything has to do with pacing. And Joel has been vocal about pacing in the past, but he was scoring 20 plus in the first half again. He was taking this thing out of control in that first half and really putting the Sixers in an advantage for sure. But just in general as a team, when they turn the gas on and they turn the heat on, they change exactly who they are. Why at times does it take that switch instead of just having it from the jump? And knowing that that's a trend, will it possibly be what is the killer in their playoff run? Because there's a few that we could throw out right now that are probably going to be our talking points if they don't win a championship. They're super thin on the bench, and they don't have a reliable bench at all. Danny Green, you can't rely on. Jordan, you can't rely on. Shake Milton, you can't rely on. But the power of Joel Embiid, even when some of your players struggle, like Niang and James Harden in the first half, kept you engaged. And that's why I keep saying your superstars will keep you involved. It's just, can they do it long enough for others to wake up? Or can they just power through and your other players won't step up, but you're just in a different world and you're in a totally different place and you're dominating at will, like we see sometimes where Kyrie goes off for 40 and Kevin Durant goes off for 50 and things that don't make sense whatsoever. 62 points, one of those bonkers nights. That can happen also. The bench, the rebounding, transition D, although the game slows down to such a slower pace where the possessions, way less, way more important, less in volume, more important in stress, and way more intensity with each dribble, no doubt about it. So those are the areas that are going to be our talking points and our bullet points, even if they don't, or if they don't win. If they do win, we could probably still talk about them. And trust me, in this city, we'd find a way to still nitpick what happened wrong that we didn't like, even if there was a Larry O'Brien and a fantastic little how do you do around Broad Street. And that's right, I'm talking, a big shebang, a big party, a nice how do you do. We'll get one of those with Joel Embiid, I guarantee it. Am I worried about Tyrese Maxey's wrist after the foul? This is coming from Calvin. No, I'm not. He did sit on the floor and shake it a bit, and he did seem to curse when he was on the floor as well, but he came back into the game, and he played the game, and no, I don't think it's anything maybe other than a stinger in the first moment and the initial moment that it did happen. Of course, there was a gasp from me, and I was a bit, please don't tell me. But then once you realize that he was going to still compete, then no, I mean, I definitely lost any sort of tiny little question that I had when it first went down. But obviously, you never want to see anything like that. At this point, though, Joel Embiid's flying on the floor nonstop. He's going full speed to the rack. He falls nonstop every single game, 5, 6, 7 different times. At this point, if that's not going to scare me anymore, I don't know if anyone else falling will either, until I see something that makes me have to be concerned. But no little tweak or anything like that at this point from anyone. If I'm going through the Joel Embiid experience. Remember back in the day, though? Seriously? Another throwback thought? Just like I was talking about his conditioning earlier. How about every time he limped for half a second because it was a normal basketball tweak? Like a normal little basketball tweak that we all had playing hoops in the driveway or playing hoops at the local park. But we fall over. We go, please, no. We start praying to the basketball gods that we don't lose Joel Embiid. Now, he's face planting. Right? I mean, he's like basically belly flopping after he makes a bucket. He's just going for it. Let's see what happens. It's insane. Oh, Joel Embiid, God bless you. Matisse Thybulle watches the show. Whenever you call him out, he makes a couple threes from the corner. Matisse is what he is. He's unreliable. He has the ability to wow you and take over games. At the same time, there's plenty of games where you have to be yanked off the floor in 17 minutes because you're hurting the offense and you're giving them zero spacing, and your defender is 3 steps away from Joel and 37 steps away from you, and that is now ruining everything we want to do. Okay, so there's plenty of moments of that. There's plenty of moments of just giving you really nothing but bad personal fouls, and he picks up his 3rd foul in the beginning of the 2nd quarter, or he picks up his 4th foul to start the 3rd quarter, where I'm sure that he was told prior to everything, hey, think first out there. You know where you're at with your fouls. And then he does something behind the defender, coming around the screen, and then he gets called because he's putting his hands in the cookie jar. I mean, the problem is you have no idea what Thybulle is going to give you on every night. So basically, if you're Doc Rivers, here's what you have to do based off of roster personnel. Hey, Matisse, you're starting, but within the first 5, 6, 7 minutes, I'll know and I'll have my pulse on things. And if you suck, I have to go in a different direction. And then the question is, well, what's the other direction, bros? Great question. Danny? Niang? And if it is Niang, then what do you have off the bench in that night? Or are you rocking him for legitimate starter minutes? It's a crazy thing, that's for damn sure. Oh, I got a notification that the Flyers lost, even though I saw it before we went live. Come on, you got to remind me. You got to remind me that that's the case. So it looks like the Braves are adding Kenley Jansen. Is that happening? Is that happening? Oh, my Lord, John Clayton passed away. Oh, that is horrible. That is terrible. Oh, that is so sad. We had him on 97.3 ESPN all the time. John Clayton. Oh, man. That is gutting me. Oh. I'm thrown in for a loop right now after seeing that. Oh, man. I'm sorry. Whew. All right, here's a stat from Joel Embiid. That is just horrible news. According to StatMuse, I'll do my best to try and get back to Sixers, although it's very difficult after seeing something like that. Joel Embiid leads the league with 30 points per game. If he keeps that up, he would be the first big man since Shaq in the league to lead the league in scoring, and the first center to average 30 points in a season since Moses Malone. Joel Embiid said that he's been telling James Harden to be more aggressive, and he was glad to see it tonight. Said Harden has to be aggressive come playoff time. No doubt. That's why we're referencing the 42 minutes of play. They desperately need someone who is a true pro to rock everything and to run the style that they need to run to produce the way that they're going to have to outscore opponents. So there were times where he was just allowing his teammates to be the ones, and we're living and dying with role players when we already know the thin bench is part of what this team is. So we can't be relying on that, James. Now, that doesn't mean don't give them the ball if they're wide open, but coming here, you need to find that. I would say it's not even a balance. I mean, I guess it's technically a proportion balance where it's more in one direction than the other, but I'm not saying 50-50. It definitely doesn't need to be 50-50. I need him to be 70% aggressive with the scoring mentality and 30% with the facilitation. You know, if it's 65-35, maybe I could live with that, but way too much deferring and go. And if that fourth quarter was a description of exactly what Joel Embiid meant and exactly how James Harden envisioned it being when he listened to Joel Embiid, then that's a scary sight if you're an opponent. That's something that I would look at as a sustainable version of success that could really take over games in a polished NBA way. There's a difference between hanging on and just being able to weirdly win a game here and there down the stretch, and then someone like James Harden getting the rock and saying, we're going to win this game. I'm going to help you close it out. Let's go. The best way to describe it for me is polished. A polished point guard game. Attacking, getting a lob to DeAndre Jordan, getting fouled, step back three. Which way do you want it? It'll come in waves, and it'll come in so many different angles. And here he is, drilling it left and right. And that was the difference for sure. Let's go to Kyle in Connecticut. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, how we doing, bro?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
Not bad. So a couple notes, just touching on what you were just talking about. It's really nice to see Harden kind of have a great breakout game. Like, it looks like he's kind of starting to figure it out. Granted, I don't think going forward for these remaining games he's going to look perfect. There's still going to be some working out, but it's nice to see that it looks like they're starting to figure out. First couple games were, the honeymoon stage. Then they hit a little low, had to figure some stuff out. And I'm hoping that this is the start of, them figuring it out more. And the other thing that I'm noticing is this narrative of Joel Embiid is always hurt and always getting out. It's over. Like, the rest of the media has got to just let that go. This is now 2 straight games after that hard fall where I was convinced he wasn't going to play, but he's in. This is a completely different Joel Embiid that is willing to put his body on the line. Maybe to our, chagrin there a little bit. Maybe we're wanting them to take a day for himself, but, that's just the different beast that he is. And as you've touched on for months and months and months now, that's the maturity that we've seen. And it's so great to see him this way now.
Excellent points, Kyle. Excellent points. This is a Joel Embiid that's ready to take over the league and be the best that he can. I'm sure a lot of you have all seen the clips of him speaking with Draymond Green on his podcast, the Draymond Green podcast that he does on the Volume Network. And they were just 2 dudes shooting the shit. 2 high-skilled NBA guys. And say what you want about Draymond Green, he's not the most skilled player in the world, but he's insanely important and valuable to a championship-caliber team based off of the intangibles and playing a fantastic role, gritty, tough attitude that gives that team their personality edge. You saw the difference in when he wasn't playing when the Cavs won the championship and when he was playing in that series, and he is a game changer just in a different style. It's not so much taking over the game with pure skill, but it's taking over the game with emotion and with hard work and playing with that attitude that we always see out of him. But you could just tell that these are 2 guys that are wired at the highest level that are chirping back and forth and, just having fun. And you could tell, though, based off of their chirps, where Joel Embiid is at mentally with how absolutely ridiculous he is in his game. And there's plenty of times where I'm thinking it's time to give Joel the night off. And we're not even talking about those hard falls. I made jokes of it earlier where he's basically belly flopping on the floor when he's taking some shots and he's falling to the ground. But I didn't even factor that into the equation of him and not having rest days. Him just playing a lot is why I talk about the rest days. Back-to-backs, don't have him on the bench anymore, and it doesn't matter what teams they're playing in 3 games in 4 nights. He's available. He's on the floor. Now factor in how many tumbles he takes and the work ethic of how hard it is to get down low. That's not easy. I don't care if you're 7'2" fighting for post presence against someone who's 6'9", 6'10". It's still toxic over 48 minutes every single night of NBA basketball to run the floor as a big man. You're going basically from baseline to baseline. You're going paint touch to paint touch more times than anybody else on that damn floor. And it's just another day at the office. He clocks in, he clocks out. He's playing. It doesn't matter. And that perfectly describes why we're even having this discussion of Joel Embiid being the best player in the league this year for MVP purposes. And I can't stand the whole Jokic thing either at this point. I've given Jokic all the credit in the world for how great of a basketball player he is. And he deserved to win the MVP when he won the MVP. I think this year, though, if you're still fighting the fight that, oh, Jokic deserves it again and Joel. No, you haven't been paying attention. You haven't been paying attention. And it's crazy because I'm not anti-analytics. I actually like the numbers, and I feel it's very important to have that data. More data can help you. Now, I don't want it to be the Bible where it basically makes every single decision ever in the history of the world in your sports department, and now you're forcing these numbers on everyone. I still want feel of the game, too. I want a happy combination. But all these stat nerds out there that say that somehow Embiid is not deserving and didn't close the gap and overstep Jokic so far this year, you're just not paying attention to the game and you're just reading a number that somehow is missing how much of a lethal weapon Joel is here. I constantly get this response. And quite frankly, I don't feel like fighting with Denver Nuggets fans. Who are you as a Denver Nugget fan? I mean, really? Really? Do you know what you're talking about if you're a Denver Nugget fan? Please. But I keep hearing, all Embiid cares about is scoring. Jokic cares about winning. He's a winner. What the fuck has Jokic won? The fuck has he won? What the fuck has Jokic won? Tell me. I don't get it. Something that other people vote on? That's not the same as you winning a title. And that has pissed me off before, too. This. I brought this up. It pisses me off. Stupid. If you're a Nuggets fan, you can acknowledge that this year it's Embiid's to lose. Knocking scoring points. All he does is score points. You're wrong. You're actually wrong. You're not correct because his passing has been stellar this year. He's not as good of a passer as Jokic, but his passing has improved wildly. They don't value free throws, these idiots. These stupid idiots. They don't value free throws because in their mind, the free throws aren't deserved. It's just the referees calling fouls instead of Joel Embiid being so good that the other team doesn't have any options to stop him. I didn't think that it took a lot of dissection to understand that. You're telling me for 18 times a game, I guess I should say 9 times, he goes to the line 18 shots, that all 9 are just, the refs just wanted to call it a foul down low. No. I'll give you maybe one or two throughout games. But guess what? Your team's getting the same thing on the other side. Majority of the times, just like any big man would, you don't think Shaq was getting fouled? Now, the problem is with him, he couldn't make his free throws, so teams like like Dwight Howard in his prime would send them to the line on purpose. So hold on a second. So you're telling me Joel Embiid, when the history of the big man shows it's very difficult for them to make free throws, that now Joel Embiid, who can shoot it at, what is it, 80? Where's he at with his free throw shooting? The way that I just spelled Joel Embiid's stats with one hand over my soundboard was terrible. Joel Embiid is shooting 82% from the line this year. A little bit down. He shot 86 last year. His average for his career average is 81. So now we're not going to give him credit for being able to hit the free throws the way that he does. Okay. Crazy. Now, I don't want to pretend like Jokic wasn't deserving of it last year. I thought Jokic was incredible. And I feel Jokic is incredible. Still, this season, very, 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 very good. Not far off from Joel Embiid. But I'm not being biased here. Last year, I was very open to saying, I get it. I completely can see if Jokic wins it. This year, it's sort of like with Bryce Harper. There's no way in hell anyone was more deserving of Bryce Harper to win the NL MVP last year. Or the way that Joel Embiid's playing right now and leading the league and scoring 30 points per game, I mean, it's ridiculous to think that he's not deserving. Just take the bias away, that's all. Don't tell me that he doesn't deserve his points because he gets fouled. Well, one guy lives in the paint, the other guy's more of a point center. Your center doesn't work that same way. And by the way, when Embiid and him were both on the floor at the same time when Denver was in town the other night, Joel Embiid waxed his fucking ass. All right? And it wasn't close. And I got the response after that game. Who won? Oh, that's right. Who won? Do you remember what happened? DeMarcus Cousins was drilling threes. They had threes being drilled, not by Jokic, at the half-court logo. Nothing but net. They were rolling when Jokic wasn't even on the floor. Their bench killed you. That's why they won. I don't know what game everyone else was watching there. But anyway, that's kind of where I was with that game as a whole. And that's my thoughts on this game. I totally just got sidetracked back to that Denver game, and it is what it is, I guess. But anyway, with that being said, I want to thank everybody so much for hanging out with me tonight. The next game for the Sixers is Sunday night against the Raptors. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be on the Fanatic before that game. So the Flyers play at 2, and the Sixers play at 8:30. After the Flyers game and before the Sixers, I will lead you into Sixers basketball on 97.5 The Fanatic. So definitely check that out if you have the opportunity to do so. I'll also be on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to noon with Tyrone Johnson on 97.5 The Fanatic. So definitely check that out too. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate it. If you're looking to buy tickets to go to any event out there, use promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page for $20 off. So basically eliminating all those fees. Forget about it. I'm paying for your parking. Promo code BROADS, SeatGeek's checkout page. And then lastly, TikTok, Broads Media. We're incorporating a lot of fun over there. We just hit over 2,000 followers. So thank you guys so much for doing that, and enjoy the rest of